for another episode where we review the Wing Chun forms and go into a detail on what we think about them and a little history and what they mean, the choreographies, the differences from style to style. Again, I'm still sort of in the land of the Yip Man series. I want to unlock it, uncover it, because it's a big controversy as far as who has the real stuff, who made theirs up, who has their own stuff, or came from multiple lineages. And what did everybody do as they practice it? What are they revealing online so that we could see what the heck it looks like? If you came down through a lineage, you would have been given a form if you lasted long enough in your training, and your master would share his form with you. And that's a game of telegraph all the way up the chain from wherever this first came from. So anyway, I want to get right into it. And I've selected a handful of folks to go ahead and review their work. And I'm going to start with this gentleman here. This is Grandmaster Moat. And he is talking, but it's not a very long video, so we're going to go right into it. If you can, I'll share all the links to these videos in the comments or in the description. So stick around, and of course, if you just want to skip ahead, they'll be available to you. But sorry, right, me talking. Let's go back. Moat performs the 108 Mook Jong form. Left bridge, captures. There's some distinctive differences in the way that every player on this device will move, in that they turn the body, how high up is the dummy in terms of their height next to it. So this is set pretty low, which is a standard. It should be low. This way, as you move your arms, you're blocking the power of the person's elbow and the power of their shoulder. If the arm is up too high, you can't develop a power into where their elbows would be. Nice. You can start to, so those of us that know the pattern, we might be looking at his expressions and observing them as one of the many things that could be done in here. I always look at the choreography first. Whoever's supposed to come from Yip Man has a particular choreography, and they show up one before the other typically, or somewhere near the middle of the form. What bothers me in some martial artists, and of course this man probably would have killed everybody he touched. He's probably so powerful. I met disciples of his. They were very good. So to critique him is never fair. But he doesn't come back to his Kim Young Ma each time he resets on the center. He's just kind of there. At least that's what it looks like. In that, what I mean by that is that the toes are flayed out when he finishes and he stops. So it's not a major hard line, because there's lots of times where that will work for you. Anyway, we're going to watch this probably twice because I just talked through a thing. But he has his hips in the right spot. So you can have almost any legs if your hips in the right spot. That's a strategy in terms of lifting weight. And, we don't invent it. We didn't take over the rights to it. So whatever it is, if your hips are in the right spot, you're going to have a crap ton of power. Where your feet go and where your feet are turning, where your knees are turning, will either help or hinder the mechanics you want to deliver. So personally, I try to be very diligent in returning back to what feels like the authentic original form shapes where my toes are turned in when I finish. See, each time he comes back, it's like, it's okay. Because you notice when you kick, your foot is in the open flayed shape. So it's not bad to have that ability. Yeah, this is the last chapter. Okay, we're going back. We're going back. Back. We're going to get detailed, right? Moat's, I love that he gave this video, that he let people film him. This is all traditional, but sometimes people will capture the neck. Tanda and step. He does Hyun Sao, he stays on the inside. See, the capture of the neck is minimal. Some folks, like myself, will emphasize that a little bit more. What I like is you notice when he bridges and he enters, he touches low. So notice that was a high strike right and a low strike left. Like to finish the form, the final sequences. Yeah, there it is. And he doesn't crowd it, but then he's kind of tilted for his kick. Is that just because he's sort of focused on his kick, or that's how it should be done? I guess you got to get kicked to know this. there's a lot of ways that you could posture or behave when people kick you and you apply that. So I like how he came up before he did this trilogy of rolls. Again, we're about halfway through. Good power, but it didn't look like he shifted much. Notice it's right hand spear. And the low palm becomes the side. And so in that case, yep. So the Bong Sao becomes the low hand, Bong Sao becomes the high hand. Then that's it, one of those sets. So then the Xing hands, or the Sern Gan Sao, Lop, and then a palm strike, Tan, Pak, cross step. Well, it's sort of a half angle step. Some folks will do this as a cross step, some folks will do it as an angle step. Good. Comes up, it comes down. That's a takedown when you strike down like that with the foot. I love, again, anything where you can play with the legs. So notice he touched it. Each time he came in the corner, his shin touched it, or his calf touched it. Is an extra kicking set, which some folks don't have. This work here is pretty cool. Down, over. And then this sweep, not found in everybody's method, but really cool. He finishes with the left kick. Awesome. Okay, next. That was Mo Ya. Now we go to Wong Shun Leung. Again, this is clips from a video, and he's going on a commentary. Some of these are translated. I don't know that this one is, so if you speak his language, you'll be able to know what he says. But if you don't, we'll just watch his work. Okay, let me get to the beginning. So he has no formal way in except just a left spear. This dummy looks a little too tall for him, but he's in a gym. I don't know if that's his gym or someone else's. They have a dummy, that's fine. Work with that. One of his differences that I see always is that his horse is a little bit wider, but he's got his hips in the right spot. So again, we give everybody free passes, I think, on footwork a little bit. If your hips are in the right spot, you're going to have crazy lifting power, and that's really important. Now, he shifts when he does his Pak Sao Zet. Not everybody does that. And he uses it like a jutsao, or a snapping of the wrist down, for each of those hand catches, right? He was also tipped when he kicked. Tipped, okay? And again, rolls but stays on the inside. Then we're into this, okay? We call this the Popeye section. So Bong Sao becomes the high hand. Bong Sao becomes the low hand. And notice he strikes low left and strikes high right. Then the symmetry set. Okay, is he stopping? No, please keep going. Oh, now he wants to do a demonstration. I want to skip demonstrations. I want to do the form. Oh, I'll stay with it. He's got the best applications. As you see this, all these series that he shared with everybody, they're just so good. The Science of Infighting was a piece he had made in his younger years, which is really, I think, a great work of art and a time period piece. But shows sort of some average ideas. Once you get these seminar pieces, you get some of these above average ideas, which is how the Gansap could be played indoor. Not something that most people even understand. Unless you've had some time, you get the chance to train all these additional moves from things. So how often are you on the inside? Sometimes that happens. Anyway, I'll see if I get the rest of his form. Otherwise, I hate to do it, but I'm going to skip him. Hang on. Let's see. He goes in the next set. So, Popeye. And he's going through what I just said, is that one side is a high entry and one side is a low entry. Yeah, you might end up always against two punches. That's the meaning of all this. It's good. We stayed on this. I always like to do forms, but in the rare event that you get this conversation to come to a circle, that technique, all the techniques are against the jab cross. person throws both of their hands. Everybody's got two hands. They're going to grab you with one, throw a heavy one, or they'll reach in to probe. If they're trained, they'll probe, and then they'll throw a heavy one. You always have to see everything as two counts, especially the Mook Jong, as you trade from, as an example, Bong Sao to a palm entry or any two count move. It's against both weapons. Okay, I don't think he's going to give us the rest of the form. Let's just see. I was hoping to go to the next chapters. Okay. Again, I'll leave the link to this in the description down below, and I know there's a ton of footage from these seminars. The whole sets are there. This is wonderful. So he shows against the head control. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna keep going. No, will we do it? Okay, we'll stay with it. Pushes him away, of course. This fellow is then Chu Shong Tin. Let me go back to the beginning of his piece just because maybe he'll do an entry. Okay. Left bridge, walks across. He didn't put his foot in. And rolled in on the inside. And there was no compression for the way the elbow would frame on that. Yeah. He does the tanda, but no foot. Strange. Actually, I've seen this form a number of times, but now that we're talking about it, I'm not looking for it. So when I first saw it, I was only interested in his hand patterns. If you look at the feet, you'll see that they are supposed to do a certain thing. If you know this form, if you've been training it for a long time. He just rolled up like you saw in the Moat set before rolling for this Cao Sao series. And into the Popeye. Always, you never know the view, but that's a hallmark set. One would be high, one would be low. Then Quan Sao set. So there's only one of those, and what looked like an elaborate series of hand touches and leg kicks. So those kicking sequences, which we see separated in some of these now, are all condensed. I can't see his feet, so I can't comment. 2 lines of thought in Wing Chun. We're going to watch it again. 2 lines of thought is, do you shift on your toes? Do you shift on your heels? Do you shift in the center of your foot? Well, how are you shifting? 2 schools, usually it's heels or toes. I guess that depends on your preference. I like to teach both, but I stay on my heels largely. I'll admit it. I think it's way more powerful. If you have a boot on, you can't dance around like you're Muhammad Ali or be real agile. You want to be based. If you have a good deep ankle compression and you're fighting and using a lot of root on somebody, you can't. Your toes are going to be important for power, but you can't change direction on them. You could try. And then, of course, the heel shift is just so fast. Anyone that studies Wong Shun Leung style, I think you could accept maybe that you'd see how important it is that when you pivot, that the heel is down. If you train a style, William Chung, or some of these other ones that are maybe a little bit longer distance preference fighters, or you did some Jeet Kune Do, those guys are all on their toes. It's fine. It works. One is for different purposes. If you're going forward, you would go heel to toe. If you're going backwards, you go toe to heel. Anyway, I'm talking. We're going to go back. I don't like that he doesn't put his foot in. To me, it's wrong. But this guy's masters, so it's okay. If he does it like that, that's his style. This is just a choreography and a training tool. So there's no hard marks. Like, did Yip Man invent this? Did somebody else invent this? I could show you other systems that are non-Yip Man, and you'll see there's so many methods of this thing. It's incredible. Wing Chun does not have, exclusive rights to it. It's found all over Shaolin. We just happen to be keepers of it, and then in our modern era, we've sort of crystallized like what's considered good and what's not, because so many people train it. And it has been pressure tested. And if you're in a good school, you'll pressure test it constantly. So these moves, and eventually, of course, your form needs to be done with strength, power, and you're just, you're destroying this thing. Each of those moves are nasty combos. Okay, pull by set. That's the low one. He did put his foot in. I saw that. This is quite interesting. So see Quan Sao instead of the large hand Gan Sao, which is more common. And then a little trapping hand. Tan Pak. Again, he rolls on the inside. And then these kicks and a cross step are found in the same set. So I like that you did the side kick, then the cross step. To me, those go together. It's cool the form has this. So then the large hand Gan Sao's. Again, I can't see if he's shifting on his heels or toes per my previous comment. So I have to look more in his lineage to tell you if all the guys do it like that or if he does it like that. In that I mean by turning on the toes or heels. Next, Yip Man. First son, Yip Chun. This is about as close as we're going to get to a complete set, I think, of whatever Yip Man was doing. There's a little gold book that came out, and if you're following that book, you're going to get the version of the form that was prolific in that time period, and it was published by Grandmaster Yip Chun. So hopefully this is close to that. Again, to his testament, and I would say so far everybody, he knows where to put his hips. So we can give everybody free passes on their horse a little bit. In my school, no, you're coming back to the first form, knees. I want you strong. I want you to work that strength. So I'm attempting to be authentic. But as you can see, if these guys are Yip Man's disciples, notice he's not in his Kim Young Ma. But he's got his hips in the right spot. I also would say that this dummy's probably too tall for him. But he's a little man, so I would bet almost everybody's school he goes to where he's doing a seminar, their dummy's set too high for him. So what that does is that means that the top hand techniques, oftentimes you have to put your elbow in a weird place where you probably wouldn't want to put it if you were really sparring on a human. On a human, you want to manipulate the elbow. And in the dummy, it just sits there, so you can't manipulate the elbow. So if the elbow is up shoulder height, which is never the case usually in any person in case they're at the end of their punch, but a lot of times arms are in between shapes. They're not always extended. You need to be able to manipulate and have a sensation of manipulating the elbow strength of a person. So when the dummy's set too high, you lose that sensation because the arm is occupying a gate that's too high up. It's a shoulder height maneuver. This is fine. A lot of the moves will work beautifully and are designed to combat against shoulder height. But if you want to go to grappling, you need to get control their elbows. What I mean by grappling, you want to take them down, you want to subdue them, lock them, throw them. You need to get past the elbows. You want to win in an instant. You don't just sit there and spar and box a person. You trap their elbows and then you never give them back. So when the dummy is set low enough where you can manipulate the arm height as if it were an elbow, you get that advantage. Okay, I'm talking too much. Let's go back to the beginning. If you're with me, this is probably the silliest version of me giving commentary. I'm trying not to be whimsical about it. I'm serious. These guys are really, it's wonderful they gave us their work. I love the training, but I like a light heart because I know nothing. I'm just a student. Okay. Again, no Kim Young Ma. He did shift a little bit, like on the outside chop. He steps in, kick. I like that he steps in. And he had nice form posturally when he did his kick. He wasn't leaning very much. Center line set. Usually there was 3 shifts. It looked like there was just 2. 1, 2. Okay, into the next set. So there's only 1 of those. Very nice precision. I'll give him all the praise I can give him here. For anybody who's got a horse I don't like or they didn't step in, who am I? So I'll always, if I can see it and I see something that's beautiful, I want to call it out. So he's got great posture, good hip position, really nice sharp movements in. That only happens if you did this a lot. You have to train hundreds, thousands of hours. You have to have the corrections from your master to say, hey, no, not like that, like this. And then you have to watch people train it, see it done wrong. You have to teach all these things to get to the level where this fellow's at, even whether you like it or you don't. Regardless of the positioning of his hands and the precision of his thing, this is the 108 set, or which then got put back to the 116 set. And he has some unique transitions. I didn't see a grappling hand. I didn't see a Cern Lao. I went back for it. Did I see it, or we missed it? Again, that looks like Quan Sao instead of like a Dai Bong Sao, but it is, the Dai Bong Sao is also Quan Sao. So he kicks. He did, okay. That's usually the final set in what's considered the 116 set. So what Chu Shong Tin had in terms of a kicking series was quite different. What Moyat had in terms of a kicking series, at the end, he had several sections that were not the same. Okay, these guys are all students of Yip Man. They all are supposed to be his proteges. They got massive lineages. There's hundreds, thousands, millions of people under these folks, and they've got schools, and they're students of schools, and they got grandchildren in the martial world. And so these forms have been propagated down, and what I want to do in this video is sort of take a walk through history, and those of us, the viewer, who sees them all next to each other in a symposium like this, you can see what's the real one. What I like about William Chung's, although it's quite distinct, is that he jumped in. Can we go back? Let's go back. I never saw anybody do this, and obviously he's got a lot of history for being a good fighter and a good athlete, and I would call this a speed demonstration of the form. And of course, notice that this dummy moves a little bit on its rails. That's supposed to be their preferred way to see it, is that when you hit it, it runs on you a little bit. That can be difficult if you're putting power into it, because then you're chasing, and I don't care that these things are live or moving. As I understand it, the authentic old one was buried in the ground. So if you've ever trained power on a form, on the dummy form, it hits you back with the matching force. So I don't like that it moves. Again, that's their preference. So here we go. We're talking mostly about movement, but we got to get into the choreography. He seems a little high on his horse, and he's not so much pivoting, more stepping, which is okay. If the ground was uneven, you're going to step instead of pivot. There's a lot more changes of the footwork. It looks like he has that same sweep kick from the Moyat set. And notice he traps the arm each time he finishes a section, instead of doing a jetta or a hand trade high-low. He's trapping the limb. I've never seen anybody else do that. I've only seen him do that. And sweep. I wish we could see the whole thing. I do like to see the people's footwork, because as you train other styles, for example, Filipino martial arts, footwork is everything. You don't want to get killed by a sword or machete, you need footwork. And where the Wing Chun folks have maybe delayed their development is in the realm of footwork. Only the best people have the best footwork, which means that they can't be hit. They've got great distance control. They can crowd you if that's the right thing, or stay just outside of range if that feels like a preference for them as they gauge you. Okay. Unfortunately, this thing moves, so although he did check the leg, you can't see to what extent, but he did check the leg. Checking the leg is valuable for putting pressure in. This form has so many sections that are so different, but then as you see them, they're similar. It's just that he shoots them so fast. At least the performance in this, his style is large. Maybe again, this dummy's too high for him. But sometimes people like that. They want to train as if they're fighting against a boxer or a high-handed fighter, and having the arm up that high will provide you with that sensation. It's like a wrist block coming up, really distinctively different. Gansao, and a sweep, and a bridge. So some folks don't have this Gansao section connected to the kicking section. Some folks do. Trapping set, but he traps low. And does a takedown. Bong Sao, the hand catches, and then a takedown. Then a threading BOG set, which you don't see in other sets. This man is supposed to be a disciple of Yip Man, and in the history, he lived with him. In his story, he got the finer points of the art in the time that he lived with Grandmasters. So, who has the real form? Who's put their own liberty into it? Obviously, the previous folks were not going quick. Grandmaster Chung is going very fast. So, I believe, of course, the way that you would perform something when it goes at full speed is much different than how it will be done in a walking slow speed. If you want to teach, you need to kind of do a walking speed for your students because they're just memorizing. It's like memorizing a song. You would go through the verses phrase by phrase. The forms are songs. Okay, next. Augustine Fong. Fast forward all the way to the place where you can see his form. He comes through Yip Man lineage under Kam Ming. Kam Ming is supposed to be among the last generation disciples under Yip Man. And what I love about Master Fong's work is, of course, hips are in the right spot, and he has awesome footwork. I think the best footwork probably of anyone I ever, took a look at their work and was interested to model against them. I think the best footwork. You can see the dummy, of course, underneath it's worn out. Okay, I think also maybe this dummy's too tall for him, but that's my preference. I like them low, but that's okay. Still very clean shapes. I think his handwork is excellent. Everything is so refined. The Wu always returns. Okay, it's more of a front kick when he does this one. That's okay. See, it's still like a Bong Wu, but he's postured up nice. Now again, some of these sections relate to what we saw in the other folks, but some of these shapes are a little different. Okay, 3 rolling sets. And then the kick. And right hand, BG. At this point, we've seen so many that now you could see. I like how he's going so slow but precise, but still there's a good jing in it. What I mean by jing is just good power, good impact energy. That's a pull by set, both sides. Gansao set. Gansao set into a trapping set. Then outside kick. It wasn't a dragon step. That was close. It was like 2 heels came together. Like both heels came together. Some folks will do a dragon step. Again, I like, you see, he checks the limb. I think that's important. There's 3 counts where in the previous sets there were 1 counts. Again, here's a new one. Nobody sees this ever, where you see that you train the ankle power. That's something you could do. This is a study point. Phoenix side punch. First time I saw this form, I was like, wait a minute, because I had seen some of the other folks' forms, and of course I had the little gold book. I said, hey, this guy's got more sections. Like we left Yip Man form set 2 sets ago. Okay, he's got the ginger fist and low strike and sweep. There's like sticky leg, up, then down, then up. Hammer fist. So he's under Kam Ming, and he's been keeper of Kam Ming's lineage for a long time. There were not a lot of folks out there that you could find that knew his work, so we only had Augustine Fong to go from. if you're comparing lineages, which is something that those of us as students do. You get a lineage, your master's maybe an open-minded person. He invites you to share or go learn with anybody who will share with you. If you're dedicated, you stay, you learn his method, which I did. But then you see this work and you go, my gosh, this guy's got the whole form. But some of this you have to ask as we go into the other things, like, did he add this? And so the only way to answer that is to take this journey with me. That was a lot, right? There's a bunch of pieces in there. Again, in this clip, he's got like a whole series where he explains what it means. I'll make this video available. I own a DVD of this from years ago. I have the VHS of this from years ago. So back when the web was young and you couldn't, there's nothing, there's no video, there's no YouTube. How do you get this stuff? You get it on tape. And so I've seen this form and known about it for a long time. And as I was studying the art, trying to just understand what was the possibility of this thing, there's so many sections in here. I want to go back. I want to go forward into the ones that, yeah, here we go. I like that he has extra sections. This is not a negative. Of course, posture's awesome. His footwork is awesome. He kicks completely. We saw Chu Shang Ting do kind of a lazy kick. We saw Moat do kind of just a tap. William Chung actually really hard kick the thing. And when you see Augustine Fong here, you see he's doing some of these with a nice placement, and then some of them where he's giving a good whack. This thing is unique. Okay, these are like, again, placement kicks for accuracy. And in this tape, you'll say this. They say this is the one that's slow, and he performs it again at a full speed. And so again, you go full speed, you're really hitting this thing. That's not something I recommend a beginner get into. You shouldn't try to hit it too hard at first. You should get good at placing it. Excuse me, and you go slow and you get accurate. You got to learn what part of your muscles or what part of your arms can take an impact and which parts can't. And so the changing of the palm shape is actually on purpose to put different muscle zones into the impact line, or to place the bone into the impact line a certain way. If you do that wrong, you get hurt. You just get bruised, and then you can't train on the thing hard because you went too hard with the wrong shape. So I think awesome. There's all these extra sets. I believe, of course, that he put drills into here. If you started teaching and you were having good luck, you had a good big classroom, students for a long time, they get to this form. If all you had was what we saw these other four masters do, or some of these short forms, you'd be like, oh, this form's too small. I wish there was more to it. I wonder, maybe that's the case. Pure speculation. Next. This is another Kam Ming disciple, and he is calling his work Kam Ming Wing Chun. I'm not sure where this is, but this is a stage demonstration. You could also see it's so cool. There's so many different designs for these things. Like that's a freestanding one. The other ones are on the walls. Okay. He touches the leg. Nice and clean. To his testament, nice clean handwork. It looks like his hips are in the right spot. Unfortunately, this dummy is bouncing, so you can't go too hard. The thing will fall over. And good posture for the kick. I think this dummy is, I would say, set close to the right height for a person, average. You want the arms to be, the point of the arms to be at least shoulder height when you're in your deep stance, or they would be a little lower. And this gives you an approximate range where you're really manipulating the wrist to elbow area of the person. Right hand right into Popeye set. Popeye is the bottom hand. Went to the Gansao set. Mind you, Augustine Fong is Kam Ming, and so is this fellow. I don't have his name. I'll have to look him up. He'll be in the descriptions. Everyone's famous. If you're in my video, you're famous now. But he's published this thing years ago now, so 4 years ago. It's a nice presentation of his, I guess, his whole set. This looks like the 108 or the 116 form. It doesn't look like what we just saw Augustine Fong do. Some, a little bit. Let's see. Kick. Then the double grab. And normally that's the end. And that's the end. Okay. Kam Ming, he stopped at the double grab set. We're going to keep going. Who else have I got? One more. This gentleman, I follow him on Facebook. He's a fantastic fellow. Shares a nice video. Also, Kam Ming. I'm going to move my panel here, see if I can get him in the whole frame. Again, look at the footwork worn out. He's doing it blindfolded. This, of course, a wonderful training modality is to go dark and then you go on feel completely, because you got to measure how far away it is. If you want to put power in, you need to know distance. So distance control is really valuable in here. Let me kill the sound. Right. This is doesn't seem to be moving left to right, but it's obviously on some pretty loose slats, so it's shaking as he puts power in. Okay, I'm talking too much. I'm gonna go back. Let's go back. Left bridge, pull, step in. He did put the foot. Again, I love, he's got nice clean hands. His hips are in the right spot. A little shift with the Macao set. This is common. Some people like to do that. Yeah, so you're blindfolded, so you don't know how far away your kick should be. Right? One tells you the other. And the Macao set. This is an interesting design too. You notice the leg is like a little pin. As long as you got something to kick, it's good. It's better than not having one. Right hand Popeye set. Bong's the high hand. And then there's the low hand. And the Gansao set. He's going quick. And you know you're being filmed. Maybe you want to do something that looks cool. If you go too quick, it'll affect your precision. He's also blindfolded, so precision will give him complete free pass. He's blindfolded. I think it's quite precise for being in dark mode. Yeah, down and there, and then the kick, down. This looks like the 116 set. This doesn't look like what we just saw Augustine Fong do. And it doesn't have a couple. It does have the thing from the Moat set, down kick, and another bong lop. Okay, wish I had the rest of it. I wish I had him finish. Really cool. So this answers it for me, is that what Augustine Fong has placed into his set is some drills. Okay, we're gonna keep going. Duncan Leung. Let's see if I can get to the beginning of this series. Okay. And I'm gonna move up. Let's see his footwork. Again, I think this dummy's set to maybe too tall for him, but maybe that's how he liked it. Maybe this is his gym. Maybe not. He grabs on the outside, checks the leg. He shifts with the Macao. I think look at his hips. He's got his hips right in the right spot. I mean, this is, people look at Wing Chun and they're not sure what we're doing with our legs. If you took anything away from the function of the system and you're really trying to add it to what you're up to, or you're trying to improve your Wing Chun, you have to put first theory in play at every form, and that's, where is your middle? And then you need to find the ability to make your middle hover. The only way to do that is to turn your pelvis. So these guys that have got a wide stance, or maybe not a very deep knee bend, if they're in that hip position, it's fine. They have crazy power. So where you put your hips matters a lot. If you want to, double or triple your ability, you would add a lot more leg techniques, meaning you get lower. More bend in the ankle, more precision with your footwork. Right, Popeye becomes the low hand. This looks, and so all these guys are disciples under Yip Man. He has the Kwansao set, and then Lansao step in. Really cool. A little different. I didn't see this in anybody else's, right? Has the trap, and then he steps in. anytime you get to put elbows in, it's sweet. So, yeah. Kick. Yeah, he's just like what we saw Chu Shongtin do, which was that he kicked and then he cross-stepped. Kick, kick, cross-step, then kick. So what they've done is put 3 kicks into one little chapter. Sometimes that's not done that way. They're separated. And palm strikes on the low side, left. Palm strikes on the high side, right. A common trend. Look, high side, right. Down, up. He's teaching, so we're going slow. He wants his students to learn this, so you don't go too fast. If you're training on your own, you're doing a personal workout, you can smash this thing, go crazy. If you take bruises, you're still learning. If you don't get hurt, or you can control how much damage you get, and you know how much toughening you're giving yourself, go for it. Nobody should tell you how hard to train. You should tell yourself how hard to train, and you should go on pain. If it hurts, you're doing it wrong. But if you can see that you're getting tenderized and you're building it on purpose before you hit pain, you're doing it right. So we're going back. Where's my play button? Back, play. You could say that a lot of his shapes are larger. Like there, he grabs the outside, and there's a lot of gap changes. Like between tools, he really separates and reconnects. And many folks, their hallmark is that they stay very sticky to the dummy, and as you change from tool to tool, you're very close to the changing line. Whereas he's sort of like taking some liberties, moving around kind of big. Okay. Like the Bong Sao hand in here is kind of folded. It's okay. You see that this is the technique though. So the technique is go to the side and side kick, frame the hands. Some folks had a shift with this. He has like a little half turn. That's okay. You notice he's shifted on his heels, it looked like. I like that. That's my personal taste. But I'm not offended by people that shift on their toes. It has its function. It becomes a high hand. And then it becomes the low hand. Good. He swings outside and around the limb for the cow cells changes. Right, so am I seeing this right? It looks like he's done 2 of these. I like when things are symmetrical. I'm a big fan of that. So when I see these forms and they're asymmetrical, I get upset. When I was first given this form, I was given it one-sided, and I didn't question it. I said, oh, this is great. Thanks. I can't wait. I'm trying my best to learn it, get the shapes right. I get my first student who wants to learn it from me, and I go, yeah, it's only one-sided. Wait a minute. We have 2 sides. So immediately and effortlessly, you can unpack any one-sided form and make it a double-sided form. If you pass it on to your students as a one-sided form, certainly they'll learn it sooner, but they'll be asymmetrical. The world is asymmetrical. People are dominant right hand. So it's okay if there's only one chapter, provided, I guess, that it would give you the skills to be able to massively outweigh a right-handed fighter. So you'll see if it's one-handed set and you're only working with your dominant side, great. Most of the time, other people are only working with the dominant side. They're only throwing their hard right hand. Statistically, it's a top right corner. So if you know how to do it one-sided and you're managing against that dominant upper left side, you'll be in great shape. But we're a place of peace, and maybe in a place where we can unpack this art even further and improve it. And I think that anything you can do that adds symmetry helps improve it. But also, as a martial artist, it helps improve your own abilities, because some people are lefty, and some people are intelligent fighters. And if you do any dueling, and they've been training a very beautiful counter left hook, you're going to be upset that you didn't train your other side. I think you have to spar boxers to appreciate why you should consider training both hemispheres. Many boxers are dominant on their favorite side. But again, you'll be tricked by somebody who's trained, of course, that extra skill in the left hook. Yeah, so some of these sets were symmetrical, some of them weren't. He has a few extras. Okay, we're going to keep going. Here's another one. This is Seminole Wing Chun. I'm going to move this down to frame. And Master Carl Godwin, he comes under Wong Shun lineage down through a few folks under Wong Shun, Ken Chung, and boy, I got to freshen up on some of his lineages, guys. But he's got a beautiful, I think, presentation of the art. What am I seeing? Subset 20. This is not his slow motion one. This is his fast one. I was hoping to find his slow one. Fast, but looks like he's just tapping it. Whereas some of the folks did a fast set and they were hitting it really hard. So fast is relative. This looks also sped up. If it's not sped up, bravo to him. He moves quick. Unfortunately, I guess now, and for a video like this, way too fast for us to discover the form pattern. I'm going to make the next clip. I'm going to pause this, make the next clip, this fellow doing it slow. But you can see, all right, that's an aversion of studying this, is that it goes that slow. And if you're smart enough to follow it, he does the Moyat trip. But I believe there's extra here. Yeah, and then the cross step, he does what Chu Shong Chin does, where he side kicks and crosses. Duncan Leung did the same thing, side steps and then cross steps. Looks like there's an extra one of those. Tons of in-between hands, meaning the hands change from Gan to Quan and around and into Kao, like extra. Looks like extra. Yeah, I'm sorry. Stay tuned. I'm going to get you one that's a long format, okay? Back. So, Seminole Wing Chun. I had his slow one teed up. I just didn't have the tab open for it. And when I first looked at this work, I was like, oh, I'm really interested in this. It's got so many more sections. I want to see it, and I want to watch it over and over again. Let's see if we can get back to the beginning. I'm sorry to do that. So left bridge, he traps the outside. What I like about this fellow's work is, of course, he's got very low horse, his hips are in the right spot, and testament to this lineage, his spine is really nice, upright. You should have your eyes facing the dummy. You should have your spine matching it. And it's one of the key valuations of this training device is that it's standing up straight. And if you can echo it, you get all the hallmark benefits of standing up straight, which is improved blood flow, a relaxed set of shoulders, changeability, and some meditation in its own, just trying to stay upright. Anybody can go fast and kind of sway your spine and, you know, spar with this thing, but it's not just about sparring. It's about improving the quality of all your moves. And having an effortless style is seen as a sophisticated Wing Chun. If you have to work really hard for it, that's okay. Look, if your life depends on it and you're in a fight and you need to survive, you just do what you got to do. But if you're in a place where you can really, really train and refine yourself, you want to go for smoothness, you want to go for effortlessness, you want to go for precision. If you can win with hardly any effort, it's a complete, I mean, it's like the trophy is there in the effortlessness. Okay, I like that he's so relaxed and the power of the hands is really relaxed. You notice this spiral set, this Hyun Sao rollout is distinct. We haven't really seen anybody else do that. And so I wonder, is this his work? Is this his master's work? I've had a hard time finding very much footage of Master Ken Chung doing any of his dummy work. And that's just because they're trying to keep it proprietary. I believe they're guarding a little bit of it. They don't want to just give it away. This guy's, I think, quite confident and I think doing a great job. So he shared this with his students and any of us that are on the web that are interested in this kind of work. Like this video's got 73,000 views. It's been out for 13 years. This means that folks like me and you that are studying the wooden dummy, we've maybe watched this clip and we're interested in all these differences. Again, like just so he's very relaxed, walking speed, as opposed to the one we just saw where he was, you know, as fast as his body could generate movements, he was making movements, but it wasn't powerful. I guess the only comment here is he's hardly using any power. They're just touches. Again, maybe I'm contradicting myself. I like when the power is displayed. I think it's incredible. If you can shockwave power into a person and eject them out of their stance, I think it's the best. But if you can do that with almost no motion, that's really a true skill. So what should you train? So I think you need to train this differently depending on what you want to do. You might do the form over and over again and try with different muscle types where you would go soft, or you would do it over and over again and you do it really hard and fast, or any variation between. The best way to get good at this is to study the chapters independently and run them over and over again. So you would just pick chapter 1 and you would just do it for an hour straight, whatever your schedule permits, 30 minutes straight, 20 minutes straight. Don't change it. Stay on it. Perfect it. You might get bored, so okay, do just one of the chapters for 5 minutes, and then pick another chapter, 5 more minutes, then another chapter, 5 more minutes, and you stay on it. That'll digress into individualized motions where you might just like a single transition and a single footstep, and so then you pick that, do that 1,000 times. If you don't have time to do it 1,000 times, do it 100 times. If you don't have time for 100, do 10. Everybody's got time for a 10 set. So when you see these forms, they're an entire library, and they're not really hardly doing more than 3 sets in most of these. And they're going through chapter after chapter of possible things you could do. Again, Augustine Fong and this fellow seem to have forms that are almost as long as each other. But then compared to some of the other Yip Man series, these guys have footsteps that are related. Again, Chu Shong Tin had a stomp kick, side kick, stomp kick, and reverse kick, and this guy just demonstrated that. Some of the forms don't have that. And this hand change rolling, really cool, really cool. But again, maybe not found in the other sets. So is this there? Did they add this? These traps, like that roll away. Did they add this? That roll away. Did they add this? I would say yes, because you're not seeing anybody else do it, right? But I still think incredible. If you learn from this master, you're going to get a great system. If you learn from any of these masters, you're going to get a great system. So again, this is a conversation on Yip Man series. In the next clip, I'm going to take you in. We'll look at some non-Yip Man series, which is supposed to be the first disciple or an early disciple of Yip Man when he was in Foshan. And I did make another video on this. If you go back into the earlier episodes, there's a whole piece on this gentleman. I have several of his forms, and I want to share my opinion on them and watch it with you just like this. So there is a video where I go into this again, and we're going to do it here in this collection. Okay? So he is supposed to be a student of Yip Man and the keeper of that work. After the fall of communist China, Yip Man fled to Hong Kong. This fellow, I understand, probably stayed in the mainland and so kept the tradition alive. Notice this dummy's buried in the ground. Love it. Okay. And you could say maybe he's playing this very light, just like the last fellow. And some finger darts, pretty cool. Some low strikes. This has almost a choreography look like what we just saw. He did the Phoenix Eye Punch underneath, which is cool. Looks like he's got his hips in the right place. But he comes back, there's no compression in his ankles. Like he's not in a very deep stance. And I personally prefer a really deep stance. I like to work my ankles and calves. I want awesome footwork, so I'm really interested in that. I like to get low. Notice he's on the side, but he didn't insert the leg. Not wrong, but different. Because each scenario, you don't always have to have your leg in front of you when you're manipulating a person. You could have a side body position to shuffle them. Really cool. He did like a punch recovery. Punch recovery. Again, you're not seeing this in anybody else's work. Is this his? Was this Yip Man's first work? And then what he gave to his students in Hong Kong is just, smaller version of it because his first one was just too big. That was a common story in the years past, is that the form was really big and Yip Man wanted to put the blessing of 108 back on it, simplify it. And unfortunately in doing so, to some of the conversation, that he may have made it too small, so it went back up to 116. But then to some of these other folks here, we're seeing more chapters. So was there a lot more than 116? Augustine Fong's form had like 180 movements almost. This has clearly got additional chapters. So again, is this man adding drills? Is he repeating some of the sections again and again? If you can recognize the chapters, you could see that they relate, the shapes relate, but he's clearly you know, they're just in a different order, or they just appear different. Is that cool? The kick and the punch. And so I guess maybe some of these sets have to happen more than once. But again, he's going through a chapter after chapter. Down, around. Quan Sao set, punching set. And that's the end. That's the first time I've seen anybody do a form where they, I'm going to play it one more time, where they put, where they finished the form in the same pattern design as it was finished in the boxing forms, in that you did a 3 count at the end, and some kind of 3 count. Usually it's like the grab at the end and it's over. I didn't even almost see that in this guy's work. So Quan Sao's, then Pak Das. 3 Quan Sao's, 3 Pak Das. Yes? Pretty cool. Okay, next. If you followed anybody on Wing Chun and you're trying to look at videos, this guy's got 1 billion videos online, 1.8 million subscribers. Who am I to tell him he's right or wrong? But I don't like his Wing Chun at all. I think it's I think he's half trained. I think he's better maybe at his Shaolin arts or some of the other arts he does. He's if you looked at his work, he's very knowledgeable and knows a ton of moves. But when you see this, it's missing the hallmarks. First, his tail's in the wrong spot. Doesn't have it under him. It's way too close. I guess this is what he's calling Wing Chun. It's a Wing Chun dummy, I'll say that. But is that the Wing Chun form? Maybe he should have said, this is me practicing on a Wing Chun dummy. Okay, hold on. We're skipping his quote. He's got a lot of videos, and he is certainly presenting himself as a master. And I would just say, if you're studying Wing Chun and you're trying to get authentic Wing Chun, maybe skip this guy. But look at it maybe just for some ideas as far as what maybe you could do for some shapes, but maybe what you wouldn't do if you're trying to emulate the Grandmasters. And this is that he's way too close. This dummy's too high for him. That's just a drill. That's not a wrong drill. That's not wrong. He does a woo and then a turn, woo and then a turn. But he's got his tail behind him. It's not under him. And he's in sand. It's okay. He's shifting on sand. This is not him doing a form, it looks like. Now we're going to keep skipping you. Skip, skip, skip. And then some of these blocks, those low blocks, they can be done this way where you trap one, trap the other. But he's not doing Wing Chun. He's doing some conglomerate of his own creation. And his tail's in the wrong spot. Okay, next. As promised, a non-Yip Man lineage. Vietnamese Wing Chun, wooden dummy. There's a few of these guys that are out there, and I love all their work. It's so different. That's why I like it the most. And, of course, this dummy's enormous. The limbs are shaped not similar to how we would see them in the Yip Man style. And, of course, this dummy's on the ground and very, very big. And I assume that's so that it doesn't fall over easily. Looks like it's in a little cuff or a little cup, and it does shake. These guys, again, like, they're toe shifting often, and I always just assume that that's because you need to make space and you're backing up. So the toe shift is common in this art. So they move themselves around the object, and they don't stay grounded when that happens. It's obviously like you're moving around it, you're floating around it. Floating is one way of changing your weight. You can pivot, and then you can float. I guess you put them in 2 categories. If you want to float, you got to do it on the toes. If you want to pivot, you got to do it. You could do it on either heels or toes. It's no hard rule. I don't know if this is the whole form or this just switched angles. This has clearly got a ton more content than everything else we just saw from Yip Man. Is that these guys adding it for flair, but I would say maybe not, because clearly, like, those shapes are reminiscent from the other things we see. We don't tend to high kick, but high kick is possible for certain things. He just walked around it, elbow struck it. Indicative of movements from Southeast Asia. If you did some Muay Thai or you did some Silat, you would see, all kinds of things like that in there. But this looks like Wing Chun. Clearly, it's the rollovers, it's the Quan Sao's, Gan Sao's, it's the coordinated. So we're at the grappling set. So if this is related in any way to the work of Yip Man and anyone in those lineages, it's got some of that. Okay, I thought he's demonstrating. See how their arms are separated and not with a V shape. It's a distinctive difference in the design. And he does like hand traps like we saw William Chung do. So did William Chung train with guys like this? Maybe. Study some of this work. Maybe he added it in. Maybe that's actually the authentic stuff, and what Yip Man showed everybody was modified or truncated. Probably truncated because of time. Not everybody stayed with him long enough. I know the story in some cases that folks went off to go to university and they were young when they started training and they wanted to still have some skill, and so Yip Man gave them form, but only gave them a one-sided form. But then we could see at his last days what he's demonstrating in the film was a one-sided form. To me, this has got work like what Augustine Fong was doing also, right? And so there could be blending. That back step shift, what you don't understand maybe, and now you see it, is that in Chum Kiu when you do your shifts, those are forward and back elbow strikes. It's a risk. It was always frowned upon to turn your back to somebody, but it's possible. There's some nice, awesome applications. Again, maybe more Kung Fu looking, more Shaolin looking than what we saw Yip Man's work, which is usually kind of minimal. I love this little back kick. So cool. So cool. The takedown. When you do your BUG set and the wing goes to the side, those are all takedowns. You would see applications obvious to you when you train it on the Mook Jong. Like all the art now is now translated. I would consider this a full library, what he just did. So I think they're keepers of a larger set, and what we see in Yip Man's course is smaller. We saw Master Leung Guaidu was larger than most of his Hong Kong disciples and had some distinctive differences. So I can't say whether that's him doing it or whether that was Yip Man doing it. These guys were all older in age, so maybe some of the more elaborate kicking methods or some of like that sticky leg work was just abandoned or minimalized. It's supposed to be an art form on minimalization, so it's not a negative that the Wing Chun Yip Man forms are minimal. That's supposed to be their point, is they're simple and effective, and you don't need a large library. But I'm a student, and I love learning new things, and when you see something like this, I'm going to just go back into it. Why not? When you see something like this, there's so much content in this guy's form. So that's like so cool. There's so many things to learn, so many options. So when you freestyle on this thing in your own home training, you could pick up some of these habits and start working them in, having fun with it. If you take on a student and you have to teach them and it has 200 movements, imagine how hard it is to make a disciple. So again, not a negative that he's got so many moves. I would just say that if you planned on memorizing this, you're going to be at work for a long time. What's so cool about the dummy is it's supposed to be all three of the boxing forms condensed into one, and what was two-dimensional footwork is now turned on 3D with the use of the triangular shape as you move around it. Because its arms are facing forward, there's clearly a left and right side, and that gives you what I would generally say is three major locations where you would behave. You're either turning or you're stepping in. And you could step in down the middle or you could step in down the sides. It's just so cool. Brings the elbows in. You could almost say, yeah, the arms are a little bit lower, and that's good. And they look like they slide a little bit, so you can get some movement pulling on them. Hard to go full power on this thing, I would bet, because it'll probably fall over. So you can hit it, but you can't hit it too hard. I don't know if it's on a spring. That's hard to see from this video. It might be spring-loaded on the base, and that's actually even cooler, is that it's spring-loaded. But the authentic old ones were just buried in the ground. It's just easy to manufacture them. This piece, this Chi-Gurk, beautiful, beautiful. I guess you got to have a broken leg for some of that to work, right? Yeah, that's how they broke the leg. We saw this before. That's a top-down view. I recommend you film yourself doing it, and then you would look at a top-down view. It's difficult to film. You just got to mount a little thing, but you could really see your shapes, and you could really determine whether or not you're doing it right. This guy's clearly well-trained and you know, having a blast with that form. It's a wonderful training tool. So I hope that leaves you with some ideas. That's Vietnamese Wing Chun. I have to do this because I didn't do justice in this first one, and I'm a big fan of their work. And of course, this man's work and the disciples down through him, everybody who got the method of Wong Shun Leung, I believe, has a very wonderful, stable system. And to all his positive marks, his precision, his power, and his proliferation of the art can't be understated. So we're going to go in, we're going to watch it. And in the first clip, I didn't give him, we only had half of it or a piece of it, and then he was demonstrating. Here's the whole set. He checks the leg, runs the hand on the inside. and I always say this, is like him and everyone under him, they got their hips in the right spot. When you come back to the beginning, again, you could say, yeah, his stance is a little wide and he doesn't do the Kim Young Ma. Not wrong. This guy's a beast. So that was what he liked. I suppose many of his students would do it in the same way. But for my taste, it's considered maybe not as much leg training as you could do into your work. This kick, obviously, like he just placed it. He's not blasting this thing. He's just, people are watching, they're memorizing it. And energetically, he's not doing it with a ton of power. So maybe that's why the knees aren't bent more. But he's got a good low ankle for when the back leg comes in. We're in the Popeye set. Low strike on that side. So the Popeye set just turned into the symmetry set. And then these are split. Tan, and then Bong, and then the kick. We see a lot of versions that are like this, and many that are similar to this, but the two sets are combined. Got the low walk in. Has its own set. No, into the Bong Sao. It goes around. See, that's the cross step. We saw this in a bunch of other guys' forms. This is minimalist compared to the Vietnamese one. Minimalist. Still has the pieces. Cross through, trap. Clear on the high side right. On the right hand. And then a kick. And that was the left hand. So he did right hand, left hand. BUG to start that series. The Cao Sao series. Kick, drop. That's a Gan Sao series, not a Cao Sao series. It's Cao Sao, but not Quan Sao. If you could follow all that, yeah, that was it. Hold on, go back. Go back. So notice this Fox out, and then okay, comes out for a kick. This is a little different design than what we saw in the other Yip Man series and the other Yip Man disciples. Nowhere related almost entirely to what Leung Guai was doing and what the Vietnamese Wing Chun guy was doing. Even the William Chung maybe follows this formula, but is completely different. And so if you want to do the true history, you have to look at when these guys trained under Yip Man, and that's it. I guess that's not it. I know that's not it. Just a kick at the end. Gone. Did he do the Lop Sao set? Did I miss it? I talked right through it. I guess he didn't finish with the Lop Sao set, which is common, like that's the end of the form. So this is maybe his version of this in the sections he likes to teach it in, not the 108 set, not the 116 set, which we saw in the Little Gold Book, which I guess would be said that, okay, this is Yip Man's final work and that what Yip Chun carried on for him. And but you could see Moyat and Chu Shong Tin and even Duncan Leung working a similar set. Yu Choi Wing Chun. I've never watched this, so you're watching this with me for the first time. I did have a bunch of videos teed up, but now that I'm on a roll and I'm doing it, I'll grab a few more. So here we're going to go into it. Wooden dummy form. I don't know these lineages, so as I start to get into this and I see it, all I could pull out is that he's saying it's from Foshan, and so you just have to look through it and see if you could pick up any relationship. Looks like he's hunched over a little bit, and when I was first learning, I wasn't so focused on my posture and just mainly about getting the techniques memorized. And then as you go on, you discover how important posture is. So when you're hunched over, you just impinge the shoulders, and later on you get into a situation or you study any grappling. If you have a habit of being hunched over, you're going to expect to get put in head controls. So I don't like to shrug my shoulders or hide behind the shoulders as a boxer would, or of course allow my posture to be tipped as much as this. Maybe he's, because the dummy's too low for him, he has to get low, but maybe that's his way. Okay, and I'm talking here, and we're going through it. But this has got a lot of the similar sequences, but clearly, yeah, okay. So this was Foshan Wing Chun. I'm going back. If you can see it like Yip Man style, okay, so he has an opening. That's cool. I like that handshake, or that cross sign when he first entered. It's not doing this with a lot of power because that dummy plate can only handle so much impact. Those actually are a pretty intelligent way to manufacture them and be able to have them portable in your house. Better if you can bolt them to the ground. So if it's supposed to be like, if we're relating the Yip Man work to this, they're related. This guy's going quick, he's being filmed. Maybe he wants to do something cool looking as a demo. If that was the Popeye hand set, that was real quick. And both sides are high strikes. And then trapping set. Not wrong, like you use these things. The dummy is supposed to be like a human. So when you do it on a human, you're going to be crossing over, you're going to be trapping, you're going to be stepping through. And the dummy can't offer that to you because it just sits still. So if you see yourself on a dummy that's pliable or you're tall enough for it, you can absolutely swim all over the thing. And that's the value, I think, of a lower dummy, is that you can swim on it. So that's a tiny little set, similar to what we saw in the Yip Man work. Foshan Yu Choi. Okay. Non-Yip Man lineage. This is descended down through the Penam system. And we're going to look at their form. This is a clip I have that was shared with me years ago. And let's see if we can get in. This is an old dummy design that's pretty cool that somebody come up with that was all plastic and it had a floor piece. Anyway, Penam is from Foshan, and so this is, of course, this man's interpretation of that form, but this is the series that was given to him. This is old tape, and then it's been converted to digital. Notice he steps in as much as you can with the leg that's designed like that. Maybe the negative to this thing is that it's very little space for you to put your foot there. Such cool, like, other things you could be doing here. This one thing, of course, I'll say about this form. And it's like stepping out, pushing, kicking. I love any form that's got a lot of footwork and got a lot of kicking because it just lets you practice it. Again, if you're freestyling, you could totally just do whatever you want, and you could be modifying and making sections of your own. If you're trying to teach somebody and give them a method, you need to give them a textbook, and that's what these forms have always been, is their textbooks. So you can't give them all the possibilities. You have to give them the best ones. You see this? Hold on. We're going to pause. Did you see this series has finger strikes, which I just think are so much fun to add into the dummy. See if he does it again. Quan Sao's, Bu Sao's. Of course, now I skipped. I'm sorry to do that to you guys while you're watching me, but you can see this again. Still really cool. Obviously, this man's been practicing it for some time. He's quite good at it. Although he doesn't have a deep knee bend in, I'm sure he's got great power. When you meet most people that have trained it and they're at this level, no matter how much form they give in their demonstrations, I'm sure they're all great fighters. I like a very low stance, and I like to work, as much musculature as possible. You see that with the finger strikes. We didn't see this in the Tang Yik, and we haven't seen this in any of Yip Man's forms. So, and there's a little claw. This is just tremendous. Again, it's a library. Some of those kicks we did see in the Yip Man form, side kick, cross step. I don't know if they made that match or not. And the push and sweep. Okay, and so again, this is an old VHS. I'm not sure if he's now changed into another bit of his form work or if we're seeing it again. It looks like it's got the hallmarks of Yip Man series, which is, box outs and, oh, here, good, he's going into a detail on how to strike and that little series. Okay, anyway, I'm gonna leave you with that. Thank you. Wing Chun, and they spell it W-E-N-G, and this is again not Yip Man, and so we're in another family of lineage. If you watched my long pull video and you watched that in later detail, you'll see there's a whole series where his long pole work is displayed. And so here's his wooden dummy form. Okay, I'm gonna watch it a few times because it's distinctively different than a lot of other people's forms, and of course we'll go into the details that we went into elsewhere. Looks like he shifts on his toes, which I'm okay with if he has to. If you have to, I'd rather shift on my heels. I don't know if that's personal preference. We go into the story on mechanics, but what I love is that there's Quan Cao's early, and he checks the leg. This thing's falling apart. It doesn't come back to a Kim Young Ma, but his hips are in the right spot. This dummy is obviously mounted to the ground, sort of, but then also on slats, so he can't put all the power he wants to into it, I'm sure. And when you see a man go this slow, it's, I think, because he wants people to see it, and he wants them to learn it. So if you go too quick, you won't be able to memorize it. But look, I mean, look how many series there are in here. All that's trapping. I love this combination walking punch. And like he does a drag, like he's like doing fuksao or like a lapsao as he changes out of the hand shape, so forward. You see there's a lot of controlling, like he's doing chisao almost with the Mook Jong. This is very cool, this whole flip around. Very Shaolin looking. You know, I'd have to go further into the story on the relationship between this Wing Chun and Yip Man's Wing Chun. And I do believe they have common ancestry, but it's possible they're quite different. We'll have to go into that in another conversation, but you could just look at the work and see that they're not the same choreography, which means they're not the same lineage. Probably pretty far apart from each other in terms of the journey of the movements and who did what, who passed on what. This is my favorite. He kneels. As we talked about in the sword set video and in the long pole video, anytime you kneel, I think that's awesome. There's like a lost art to Yip Man Wing Chun, which is that there is supposed to be groundwork in these old arts. I guess you would have then left the Yip Man family method if you're doing anything that involves kneeling down or being low. But you know, you can do all these things standing that you could also do kneeling, and so it's just obviously clearly a different horse in order to accomplish that. And that kneeling horse is something that's been abandoned from many of the advanced later series Yip Man sets. We're going to go back, watch it one more time. From the beginning. So, like a cross hand entry. It looks, yeah, there's the neck grab from the first set of Yip Man, but clearly he's doing other things. This collection, Quan Cao's, just beautiful. If you know the work, Quan Cao's incredible move. I love that he traps the leg. See how he does like a fuksao to control as he comes back. And it's just beautiful. If you did any chisao, you'd understand this well, why you want a hand like that. So the dummy was never meant to be this crystallized thing that you do and you have to do it this way or you're doing it wrong. It's a training apparatus. And it's in lieu of a real person. You don't have a training partner. So how can you continue to grow? Or you need to train in secret and you don't want people to see you work. But certainly for solo work, there's only so much you can do in the air by yourself. You need something to hit or something to manipulate. And you could go just out to the forest and do this work on a tree. You see many bagua players just work on a single pole and they shape the various hands and they bump it with their shoulders and they walk around it. Certainly that's an incredible training tool. Better than that is that kind of thing with some arms to fight and a leg to fight. So this is a common design, although everybody's got slightly different variations of the thing. You can see they always have the three arms and some kind of leg. They may be on the wall, they may be in the ground. The oldest ones are on the ground, in the ground. What they call a dead dummy. This is on slats, it appears, and so because it's swaying, it's considered a live dummy. But we saw a lot of that so far in all the other videos we've seen, and it's no big deal. It just means you can't go that hard if it bounces a ton, because it runs away on you. It's just so cool. There's so many traps. And it's clearly, this is a form because there's a lot of symmetry. You can see him do things left and right. Again, his knees are wide open in his stance, but I've seen work from fellows that are in this lineage that are under disciples of this man, and the work is awesome. Awesome. It almost doesn't even matter what you're doing with the stance in certain scenarios as long as your power is aiming. It's right down to kneeling. Love it. Earth boxing. So that looks like a very low, a medium height, and then back to what we'd call a regular height. Most of the Wing Chun work is going to be standing at what we call regular height. If you knock a person down or they're much bigger than you, of course, you might want to employ these low-level positions. It's found in almost all the modern systems. All wrestling systems have tons of kneeling. And so it's like it's kind of sad that it's missing from a lot of Wing Chun. And so if you're working in this lineage, you get the benefit of that. If you're a modern player and you want to improve your methods, you know, that chapter, I'll see if I can find it one more time. Hold on. That chapter where he kneels. Going back. Right, he strikes. Low block. Just awesome. I'm not suggesting you change your form, but when you freestyle in the dummy and you're playing it on your own, look at some of that. If you ever studied any silat, there's a lot of that in silat. And actually you can do incredible work on the wooden dummy using many other systems, and it provides you with great handles, you know, obviously for deploying different methods, such as kneeling or low-level attacks or sweeping. One more, right? One more. If you stay with me this long, we're still on the road here learning about different systems, and so here's Leung Ting demonstrating his wooden dummy. Leung Ting is famous for changing the name of his Wing Chun style to Wing Tsun, and it still sounds the same when you pronounce it properly, but it's his own proprietary thing. So when you see it Wing Chun with a CH, you know that you're just sort of in the general soup of people calling their art Wing Chun. When you see it Tsun, you know that you're in his lineage. So Leung Ting is, as I understand, disciple of Leung Shun. That was his, I believe, uncle on one side, and then of course, his master trained with him for some time and then was invited to study privately with Yip Man at some point. But as you see, the forms tell you everything. And so let's take a look at his form. Let's see what it looks like. So Leung Shun is supposed to be one of the first disciples of Yip Man in the first class. And everybody underneath him has just nice form. It's the great pattern, good posture, good hip position. It's too bad that there's no video of Leung Shun because he had great reputation, and anybody that was his disciple adored him. It's hard to find anybody doing, I guess, what would be considered pure Leung Shun work. But then Leung Shun is well known for having changed or modified the art that Yip Man gave him, just to his own liking. We're again too crystallized maybe in the last 20 years of Wing Chun's exposure. Everybody wants it to be done right, that way, this way, that it has to be the perfect way. And so when you see different lineages, you might say, oh, they're doing it wrong. Even here today, I'm talking about things that I don't like, that I would consider a less efficient way of training, or, you know, considered a soft way or simple way or whatever. Okay, that was the whole form. Let's go back. We're going back. And Leung Ting's work is, I mean, man, he's got probably the most amount of students of anybody in the world in terms of marketing and building an empire of disciples. There's so much Wing Chun Tsun that it's incredible how much work he's done. And but so then we're seeing this is the form that would be the most prolific form probably across the whole world. This pattern, whatever this man does, everybody wants it to match, and so they're going to do his pattern, his choreography, and many of his shapes. Again, this dummy's probably too tall for him. That's what they had that was portable. It's a good one that's on this base platform, but you can't really hit it like you want to because it bounces too much. And maybe, again, like it's a little bit high up for you. There's the Popeye set. Bounce out, Popeye. The Gansao set. I wish we could see his feet completely all the time. Yes, so that may have just been a performance. I don't believe that's his entire set. But what we can see is, of course, many of the same shapes. So as you go from lineage to lineage, disciple to disciple, what would be maybe the common pieces are the shapes of some of these strikes, the way that they hold the hands, the posturing, the hip position, and I guess what would be the most different of everybody is the timing of the choreography, what section, what chapter is read before the other, and then in the completion of some of these chapters, some of them are separated, some of them are grouped, and some people have extra chapters, right? Anyway, so we're in a Popeye set. Looks like he's just doing a stage demonstration, doesn't bore everybody with the whole set, with the Gansao set and the cross step. I can't see if it's a cross step. Some people do a cross step, some people do just like a pivot angle step. Yeah, so he's not finishing the whole form. By the standards of what we just saw, he's there doing, a piece of the chapter set for the performance. All right. Well, so I hope this video left you with something for thought and something to train with. And certainly I would like to let the comments be open on this. Please feel free to share comments. I always fall back to this big major idea is that the wooden dummy is a training tool to express all three of the boxing forms. It's considered the finishing point of the empty hand system. And however, you put a blade in a guy's hand and the whole art is gone. Meaning if I'm a boxer and you put even a box cutter in your hand, you win every day of the week. So I think if you go to one of my past videos where I talk about the long pole and where I talk about the Bacham Do, this art was not meant to be a boxing art. It's not meant to be, this almighty empty hand system. It is a very good empty hand system. It is a very, very good self-defense system. It is a ruthless martial art. If you want to win and you do some of these moves, you're breaking arms, you're breaking necks, you're hurting people badly. And certainly if you just want to defend yourself or make someone stop, it's got plenty to make people stop. So as a self-defense art, it is among the best in the world, I believe. Of course, so I'm biased, but when you look at this, it is not meant to be a boxing art. It was meant to be a sword fighting art. And so these shapes, all these movements, all these angles, and the use of the different combinations is all to run the weapon. So again, I make this statement that the weapon sets were then the seed for the boxing sets, so that you would move your boxing hands in the way that the sword sets would move. So I think it's good form when a Wing Chun man uses the sword mechanics to do his boxing. Again, then you'll come in with a good bone angle and a good hand angle. And if you're going to poke with your fingers or capture or palm strike or knife strike, that it would behave just the same way the sword would behave. If you're going to flip around and crack a guy with the elbow or knee strike him and then elbow strike him or cut through or shoulder check him, all that stuff is stuff that would be done in the swords and has then been modified so that it can be done, for boxing. So if we go back to the tradition, we go to Shaolin, we go far back. The boxing is for fitness. It's for self-preservation. It's for, cultivation of your general cardiovascular health. In the real world, in a real war scenario, you need the saber, you need a spear. And again, these are all outmoded by today's standards. As soon as a pistol or rifle of any kind comes in, all this stuff just sits to the side. So what you can keep from this would be, of course, you go through a crowded street, you're on the subway, you're in a crowded lobby of a room, you're at a concert, you're at a place where lots of folks are, and some shoving match ensues, and you happen to be near it, you could completely make it stop happening. If somebody, of course, grabs onto your effects or wants to engage you, you have plenty to deal with them. If a knife comes out, I always recommend you leave, but if you have the instincts, you grab a chair, you grab your car, and you can deal with it in that way. I always recommend that you leave if you can leave, but if you can't leave, these mechanics could save your life, and of course the awareness that martial arts would give you could save your life. So food for thought. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.